Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Friend Code. I'm your host, Michael Damiani. This week, I'm joined by two special guests, Stealth and Daan Koopman. How are you both doing? Glad to have you on.
Good. I feel good. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, it's been great. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a while. Been a hot minute. Nintendo has had a lot of games come out recently. A lot of good games. We just had the Game Awards. A lot of game stuff going on. Like, the end of the year is always so busy. But I wanted to ask you a quick question that's not related to video games or even Nintendo to start off here, because this is a big thing for me, and they just had a big development as well. Netflix's Cowboy Bebop getting canceled so quickly after season one. Because I mean, I know so many people love Cowboy Bebop, and I'm one of those people who just love the anime. And I watched the show, and I was like, you know what? I could see more of this. It wasn't like, God, I want this to, like, I hate this, but I'm shocked with how much marketing that it did not meet the Netflix metrics to warrant a second season that quickly after its release.
For me, I think the strongest opinion I have on that, because I did watch it all the way through, is that I thought the soundtrack was really good because it was from the same guy. But outside of that, I don't really have strong feelings either way. Maybe that's the main issue. It didn't provoke anything in me.
That's a good point, actually. People are just so indifferent about it. I mean, they might not be willing to watch, they want people to have, like, whether it's positive or negative, to have strong reactions. But at the same time, I did see it's weird because I saw so many positive reactions, but also just as many negative reactions to this show.
Yeah. So I'm always the kind of guy who keeps it on the level. So I think my indifference tells you mostly enough, where I don't really have strong negative, positive feelings either way. The only thing I can remember is, oh yeah, the soundtrack was really good. That was fun.
Yeah, I have very strong feelings about the anime. It's one of my favorite anime of all time. I'll be honest. I watched the first couple episodes and I just couldn't watch anymore. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to manga adaptations to other mediums.
I will say this: it's no Death Note.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Don. The music was the best part of it, but the acting and the story, I was very, very indifferent to. So, so on a quality standpoint, I wasn't shocked that it didn't make it. But yeah, from a standpoint of all the marketing and all the attention this got, I am a little surprised. But that seems to be how even television goes. Like, if you don't get the ratings, you're canceled after a season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how the industry works. It's just, I thought how much discussion it was getting on social media. I was just convinced. I'm like, it's probably getting a season 2. And it's like, that's all they probably planned for was 2 seasons. So I imagine they're going to see this through, because Netflix seems to give everything 2 seasons pretty much. So I think that was a little bit shocking as well, is that, Netflix is also kind of backing off, just handing out cash to everybody and saying oh, we'll give you 2 or 3 seasons, despite no matter what, they're being a little bit more selective. And I'm with you, Don, and Stealth, about when it comes to Cowboy Bebop. I was very skeptical about this live action adaptation. I will say I had a fun time watching this go down. And not reveling in its failure. Don't get me wrong. I wanted there to be a season 2. It was just interesting to see someone else's take on this. But it was it felt like you were saying you're indifferent, Non, because neither positive or good. To me, it felt like this just didn't pick a side of what its identity wanted to be. It was either trying to be too much like the anime at some points, and then other points we don't want to be like it. And I'm like, you kind of can't have both here. What do you do? This is so confusing. And then I think sometimes the writing gets in the way, as you said. The actors are trying to do what they can with some of that dialogue. I like the Jet and Spike interactions a lot. There's some really good moments there, but on the other side, everything to do with the Syndicate and Vicious just sucked. I'm sorry, it was just trash. I absolutely hated all of those things, except for maybe the backstory on Spike, why he left the Syndicate was kind of interesting to see. that explored a little bit, but otherwise, like, Vicious was just like, to me, was just terrible. I don't know, like, it was like the biggest character assassination since Zant being like doing his like breakdown at the end of Twilight Princess to me. I was like, well, no, this was such a good villain. What are you doing? I was like, no. But yeah, so I guess like no, not really feeling too strongly about there not being a season 2 then, huh? Like you're fine with like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sleep over it.
At least the anime's on Netflix still, so you can go, feel free to watch that.
The whole streaming landscape is so weird now, man. Especially when I look at the United States, how many services you guys have. Because some stuff that's, for example, on Peacock or somewhere else is still on European Netflix.
I envy
so for us, it's still manageable. For we're getting another one next year from a Swedish company for a lot of sports stuff, which also creates a more of a bigger bubble. At some point, this is going to burst, right? Like this entire streaming bubble is going to burst at some point.
It can't sustain all these things. Like, I mean, because these companies want them to be huge. Like, if they were willing to have like a niche following, I could see like a lot of these being able to survive with like a more dedicated fan base, but a smaller size. But these are major conglomerates, and they're not. They're like, no, we need to be the biggest. We need to be huge. Like, I worry about like stuff like Peacock and like Paramount Plus. There's just like, you already have these other established players who are kind of there first, and like HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu, they're like even Disney Plus. I'm like, these are the ones that are probably going to stick around. All these other spin-off ones are the ones that are probably going to have to succumb and make deals to put their catalog on these other these streaming platforms. So I understand. Yeah, having all these choices, it gets kind of frustrating because once upon a time here in the U.S. we did have most everything was just on Netflix, and I was like, that was nice. And
yeah,
now
it was nice for a while.
It was nice for a while.
Yeah.
Well, Cowboy Bebop. If you haven't seen it, go watch the anime. It's one of the best recommended gateway animes for people because it's like easier to digest. A lot of pop culture stuff in it, at least from the late '90s era pop culture, and a fantastic soundtrack, as Don pointed out. But we also had another show that just happened recently, the Game Awards.
Wait, the Game Awards happened?
Oh, is that is it from a Nintendo fan's perspective that it was a little bit more than a blip on the radar? The Game Awards,
yeah.
Game Awards, aka the Nintendo No Show. Just kidding.
I mean, Doug was there in the audience.
Like it was funny because Metroid Dread won Best Action Adventure. And so you see some of the developers get really excited behind Doug Bowser, and Doug Bowser just gets up and goes up there, gives the most Nintendo corporate like thank you speech I've ever heard, and I'm like, oh no! I was like, I love like when Joseph Ferris got up there for It Takes Two winning Game of the Year, just seeing like that raw passion, like I love seeing developers get to express that.
I was shocked when. Well, about two things. First, them winning Game of the Year, I definitely thought that other contenders would have happened, like Deathloop. Them winning is actually a very positive thing, because I don't feel like, especially when the pure raw emotion of that game is involved and how it's set up with the two co-op players, I never thought that would actually happen. And secondly, them winning Family Game is the biggest BS that I've ever heard in my entire life.
BS?
Yeah.
Okay. Because jokingly, this category is colloquially referred to as the Nintendo category because generally it's made so Nintendo wins something.
Let's be real here. They have a few times they have not won it before. So
I'm
not really upset about that. Like, the reason why I don't think It Takes Two is Best Family Game is because of certain scenes in that game.
So you don't think the material is appropriate for being classified as a family game?
Yeah, because there are certain scenes that are really gut-wrenching, and I'm not sure how people are like, yeah, this fits in the family category, let's put it in there.
I'm going to be playing it later this month, so I have it played through for our own personal Easy Allies Game of the Year award contender debates. But as far as I understand, the game is about a family, though, literally a family, like the parents and their kids. So maybe they were going with that. Like, it is literally a game about family, and like maybe it's a more mature game for like, you know, for families to play together to, you know, if they think their kids are a little bit more mature to handle it. But at the same time, there were some pretty heavy hitters this year in that category for the 4 other nominees from Nintendo. So it was, I think, because it won Game of the Year, it had to win that category. I think that the whole weird logic of when something wins some category and it beats these other games, how could it lose to the other games in the other category? The weird Game Awards
don't
logic.
get me wrong. I'm happy it won Game of the Year. I just don't think it really fit that specific category very well.
It's fair. I think your statement here is fair. That it could have been in a different category.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to say this. I feel like there was a tiny bit of Nintendo news, just a tiny bit. And it was more of like an update and a reaffirmation of something. Self and I were kind of talking about this a little bit before we began recording, and that was the 2022 montage video they showed for the Switch. And they showed the releases they expect to come in 2022. And as of December of 2021, the sequel to Breath of the Wild was in that montage listed as a 2022 game. Now, at E3, they said they're shooting for that, and they did in a recent one of their financial updates. It was also listed there as a 2022 game. I feel like every month that goes by that it's still officially said as 2022 is like reason to be optimistic, to keep believing it's going to hit next year. So I don't know if like that even crossed your mind, or if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here with that montage, but it gave me a little bit of hope. It was like there's something here to be like happy about.
I mean, the plan was to get to 2022, so to me it's not really a shock. I'm just saying, until we have an actual release date, I'm still kind of skeptical as always.
Yeah.
Because this has happened before.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah.
I don't think you're making a mountain out of a molehill about it, because if it wasn't in that montage, there would have been 100 articles, 100 videos discussing why it wasn't in that montage. So, I think it was important that it was there. And I think this is probably one of Nintendo's biggest internal projects ever. I know the original Breath of the Wild was like 300 people, and since then, like Monolith Soft, who helps the Nintendo team, has like grown by 100 employees. So I mean, I think like they're putting a lot of people into this to make sure it hits probably the November 2022 spot that they love, for their big holiday release. I'm skeptical. I'm even if they give a release date, I'm going to be skeptical, because they've been known to delay Zelda games. It's happened a lot. It's kind of a thing. But like, I'm not going to be surprised if we don't hear about it again until like E3, and then that's the big blowout, and then we get like multiple Treehouse events, and then it's like, okay, now it feels like a real thing, and it's coming out during the holiday. But yeah, I think it had to be there. Otherwise, that's all we would have been talking about post show.
Very true. Very true. Just getting we're talking about release date. We need to get like the damn title for it. They're like, just even the title is going to be a spoiler. They said it's like, all right, well, we got to get to that point where we have an official title. Then maybe we'll get a date. I think it's going to come out all at once, the date and the title. Yeah. And I would not be shocked. I'm with you, Stealth. I think E3, if it's not, and we'll get to it maybe a little bit later, but if there's no events before E3 to announce new stuff, I think E3 at the very least, if it's coming out this year, we're gonna see it.
Right.
Another highlight. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, one thing I just wanted to mention, like I didn't have any problems with any of the awards per se, just because I don't take them super seriously. But the RPG award is.
I was gonna ask. That's what I was gonna ask you about. Was the RPG? Yep.
It's a continual sore point with me.
So you didn't think Tales of Arise deserved to beat SMT5?
Well, not even putting that aside for a little bit. Cyberpunk should not have been in that category at all.
Absolutely, that was kind of like, what the fuck? Yeah. It was like, what?
And also, I love Monster Hunter Rise. Fantastic game. That should have been in the action category.
Oh, their
Um,
category
on-
stuff is so weird,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, like even during our reaction, I know you said didn't get to watch themselves, but during our reactions, like a lot of us were just like, these category things are so weird how the Game Awards does it compared to how we
Yeah.
personally do it. We actually try and avoid categories in our awards because there's such a dated way to classify things, and
Yeah.
it just makes no sense sometimes. I'm with you on
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like those two, like even nominations, I would have switched out. But in terms of Tales of Arise winning, it's a very, very good game. And I did beat it. And it does deserve it. In my opinion, there's just a bunch of like really, really good JRPGs this year that are kind of
Yeah.
like in that same upper echelon. Like, Tales of Arise could have won, which it did. SMT5 could have won. Even Monster Hunter Stories 2, I thought was incredible. So it was a very strong year for JRPGs, and I'm very, very glad Cyberpunk didn't win because I was very afraid that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So really, if anything beat Cyberpunk, I was happy about it.
It's funny that you guys complain about this genres because I made, I think, a tweet 2 months ago. It's like, I reject the idea of genres. I'm going to give every game a 2 sentence description that still makes 0 sense and gives you zero explanation whatsoever.
Yeah, I remember having to write that type of stuff back at game trailers back in the day, and it was just like, so it just makes things feel so procedural. I don't know, that type of classification and categorization just starts to make games feel like not like emotional experiences and more like products.
Like
Yeah.
if you look, for example, at the eShop, it's not unusual now to see 3 different genres under a game title.
Yeah. That's it. Like the games have evolved past like it's so hard to classify. That's why it's like keywords now. Like it's like meta tags that help you figure out if you're searching for it. That's it because it appears under so many different interests. And I would just kind of wish it would evolve, but I think it's just the nature of like the Game Awards is that's like a history in like gaming media, gaming culture that categories have been a thing like that. And
for sure.
they like it's like they don't have every single I mean they do have a lot. They like have, but like they started to blur some of them together. Like it's like esports racing or sports racing is like its own thing now. Like they don't separate those two. I imagine at some point
it's also not really fair for certain games. For example, I think that Forza Horizon, for example, is much more than a racing game because it has so many vehicles going on when it comes to story or how the game is proceeded, that it doesn't feel exactly like it fits the racing category very well.
Yeah.
At least I'm glad it won like innovation when it comes to accessibility because it did really deserve that.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. Daniel Bloworth was like showing off that game recently to us on a group stream, and man, the accessibility stuff like that, they went above and beyond. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say another highlight to me for the Game Awards also kind of speaks to the soundtrack of this game, which is kind of funny. The orchestra performing music from all the Game of the Year nominees, and then when it got to Metroid, because hearing some of this, like, I'm not going to deny that like the other games have great soundtracks, but to me, it basically was like they were okay sounding music performed by a really good orchestra, and then when it got to Metroid, it's like, oh man, this music was meant to be played like this. I was like, it's so good, but I was also like, wow, it's just the theme song. Because there was a lot of criticism about Dread not having a very strong soundtrack overall. I'm like, so they went like it seemed obvious that they went with the theme song to represent that game. So, but on a positive note, like it was just fantastic hearing that performed by like a live orchestra. It was like yes, it's so good.
That reminds me of a few fan albums like Harmony of Hunters, which does a lot of like orchestrated stuff of Metroid, which is really looking into. Yeah, I like Metroid music, but especially with that sort of formula, it just hits different.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we were more than like 3 hours into the show, including the pre-show, so I was already pretty drained. So I was listening, but I wasn't really watching. But then when like the Metroid music kicked in, I immediately switched back because it was so good.
Like, I love when companies I mean, I love when Sony does the live orchestra when they were at E3 back in the day at this point.
Remember the good old days of 2018?
And even before that, when Nintendo had live conferences and having, like, the orchestra come out and play the Zelda music, it was just stuff like that is just, that makes it worth it having a live event. Is those are the things that are, like, to me, are like, I'm interested in this. I want more of this. And, you know, that was one of, like, the shining points of the shining moments for me in the Game Awards.
That was E3 2010.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Snap, that feels like forever ago now.
I know, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
like the 25th anniversary. It's like 10 years ago. Yeah, we're in the 35th anniversary
Yeah.
now. So, well, Game Awards, I do think maybe they went over a little bit better to wrap this up. I think they went over a little bit better this year in terms of pacing. So someone who watched it real time throughout, it didn't feel as long as before.
I would say the second and third hour dragged a lot, especially
Yeah.
the second hour. I felt that a lot of that stuff could have been formatted in like 15 minutes instead of 45.
Yeah, they packed every major announcement into that first hour, and then like it
Yeah.
felt like the second hour was like for the commercial break and then the music, and then the third hour also felt like it was really dragging. Yeah, I mean it's a 3.5 hour show including the pre-show, so it's a long show. You
Right.
know, I mean, like for me, I don't know if the pacing was the issue or the fact that I'm just not the audience for those games, for a lot of the games. It's probably just I'm not the audience for the game, so it felt like it took 10 hours to me. Because like all the announcements like I really cared about happened in the pre-show, like with Capcom and Atlas.
That's true. Maybe, and also it was interesting that some of that stuff was just in the pre-show, not in the main show. It's also probably just a different dynamic. I'm with a bunch of other people watching it like
Yeah.
live, and we're
Right.
supposed to be reacting to it, so it probably made that feel like it went a little bit faster. I do know whenever I was on the outside looking in, watching the Game Awards like from home, they do feel like they tend to just like it's like my gosh, these are so long. I'm gonna do something else for this and they definitely have that formula. You just said Stealth and Dawn. They pack stuff into that first hour. They slow the pace down in the middle with like a bunch of like kind of like filler stuff, and then they try and ramp it up to like a big announcement at the end. And like honestly, I was saying to you earlier, Stealth, for our listeners and viewers. I love The Matrix. One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite franchises, despite the second and third film maybe not being as strong, and I'm very much looking forward to Resurrections. But that finale, while it was interesting to me, and I liked seeing Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves together, that was not the big spectacular finish I think that was there. I mean, the
will
demo
say,
was
though,
great.
Yeah, I played for that demo. The demo is actually really well made.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they could have presented it a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I think that's the main issue with it. I don't think I have as much of a problem with it as, say, Fast and Furious Crossroads, which turned out to be terrible.
That might have been a lower point for sure.
I just think that I mean everyone was expecting a big Nintendo announcement and it just didn't happen. So I think like anything that wasn't like Breath of the Wild 2 level was going to be disappointing to people.
I think to me, the main issue to me is that I didn't expect all too much, but also realizing that last year there wasn't much Nintendo stuff either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they still had like the big Sephiroth reveal, and that was actually I think the biggest moment of the show of last year was probably Sephiroth being in Smash Brothers, and that was the very first thing. And when we started to get to hour 2, I was starting to wonder, you know, would he save it for the end if Nintendo was there, or would he make that the very first thing? And then I was starting to realize it would probably I think Nintendo just bailed on the show this year.
Yeah. They ran out of Smash characters. There's no more. So, damn it, Sakurai. Stop being so lazy. No, just kidding.
You ruined the show.
He ruined the show.
It's always Sakurai's fault, isn't it, somehow?
It's always Sakurai, man. Sakurai, you're letting us down. I do have a quick question from a patron of ours, from Raul. With the Nintendo sending out the Game Awards this year, do you think that they possibly have some event planned coming soon? Or do you think we're going to have to wait till E3?
I mean, there will always be Nintendo Directs. I feel that, honestly, I feel that they thought it wasn't necessarily needed. But then when people went outpouring after the financial meeting on social media, people were like, we still want Directs. So I still have the feeling that they're going to do them more regularly once next year hits. I don't know when. I wouldn't know, but like February, March or something seems logical.
I mean, Nintendo like has a schedule they try to keep. Obviously, there's variation, but they have a direct in like February, March, E3, September. Then they sprinkle like indie directs and Pokemon directs throughout the year. But like the next major direct is probably February, March.
I like this is my maybe this is a tangent somewhat. I hate people calling everything a direct nowadays.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. I'm guilty.
So you
of
mean
it.
from just within Nintendo context, or just like in general, like
Because it's not called an Indie Direct, it's called Indie World.
Indie World. Yeah.
It's not
Indie
called
World
Pokemon
Showcase.
Direct, it's Pokemon Presents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
true.
mean, I understand that, but I also have to recognize it's the shorthand. Like everyone, even people call State of Play like the Sony PlayStation Direct. You know, like
but I am also from the ilk that directs bring some different idea than what the other two
True.
presentations
Okay.
present, because Pokemon seems to more doing deep dives on the games that have coming up. Indie Direct seems more smaller bursts on both games that are coming after the presentation and games that are coming like in the immediate future on the eShop. So I think every like distinction has something different to it and different flavor. So calling everything a direct brings an expectation that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, even Nintendo they have the mini directs. They literally, that's what they're literally called to set expectation. Then they have the partner, what are they called? Partner presents or partner
Showcase.
directs?
Partner Showcase. That's why they put.
Yeah.
But that's why they put Partner Showcase in the name to set expectations that way.
I think those are done. I think those were just like a
Yeah.
thing to deal with during the COVID, like when COVID was like wreaking havoc the most on like their workflow. But I think now, like this past year has shown that they're, at least from a marketing standpoint, they can. They want to get things back to normal in terms of their marketing processes, basically. So, like, we had multiple proper Nintendo Directs this year, and I expect we will have a proper Nintendo Direct probably in the first half of next year. I agree with you.
And Direct is also like an old concept. I don't know if people realize October was the 10th anniversary of Nintendo Directs.
That was a shock. Yeah.
Yeah. The first one was randomly just So when the first one happened, I noticed because I was there. So they still called it a 3DS follow-up presentation from the live presentation the month before in Japan. And then literally 1 minute, we're calling it Nintendo Directs now. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it stuck for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I also remember some people saying that, because Nintendo didn't show anything, maybe they were having like development troubles or something with their, timelines. But the fact is, if you look at their 2022 lineup right now, it's very, very strong.
Oh, yeah.
So that's not really like, I don't think you could point to that as a potential reason why they weren't there. I just didn't think they wanted to be there.
I think there's also a bunch of stuff that they're just holding close to their chest. They always are.
Yeah.
And when they would drop it during a next Nintendo Direct or something during E3 or random Twitter announcement, like Nintendo doesn't always sit in the same line as we think they do.
Very, very, very true. And I'm with you that they're next year is shaping up to possibly be as strong as 2017 for them, and that was like one of the strongest years for Nintendo ever. And I think they have I want to believe they have a very coordinated marketing plan prepared for next year, because I think they're gonna come swinging out of the gates early in the year. I think the Direct is probably, guessing when is always an exercise in futility when it comes to Nintendo. Like people try and like use historical data, but like I do think they're waiting for Pokemon Legends to come out. And it's like, all right, here we go. We're gonna like hit you with like what's coming out at least in the first half of this year. Here's our announcements, and I think they have they're setting up for such a strong lineup because the next gen, the PS5 and Xbox Series XS, are going to start hitting their stride probably in this coming year. They need to have their heaviest hitters this year to go against that.
I wonder if they already have because we know what's January going to be like. Because like the first half is likely going to be like the N64 release of Banjo-Kazooie, and then the second half is going to be about Pokemon. But I wonder, do they already have like February and March games dated?
No. They have Brave. They have a Triangle Strategy.
Triangle
dated
Strategy
March.
is March.
They don't have anything for February. We know Kirby is spring. That's really the major game that they have to date.
And Advance Wars is April, correct?
Well, it was leaked on the eShop. They haven't officially announced it, but we're pretty sure.
I think the Direct will probably give dates for Kirby, for Kirby, Lost Planet, for
Advance
Wars, and possibly one of those other games, maybe Splatoon 3 will make it out in the first half somehow. Seems like
I wouldn't be surprised to see.
It's one of the games that seems like it's further along.
And
and it possibly would be ready to go. and then E3 would probably be like, okay, stuff like Bayonetta. Like, we might get updates on Bayonetta Breath of the Wild in like a first half direct, but I think E3 will be like, if Breath of the Wild's coming out in November, second half of the year, we can think it is, that's going to be like its big presence there. Probably see Bayonetta there. You know, anything else that was in that montage that I'm forgetting at the moment, sorry, would probably be in the second half. The wild card for me is when Mario and Rabbids sequel is coming out. That I don't know how far along that really is or not. What they showed off made me think, oh, this looks maybe far, but then when you look at the footage, they don't show off that much variety yet, so I think maybe it's a little bit earlier than we thought. We'll have to see.
Yeah, the first Mario and Rabbids came out August, so I could see that being another summer game. Yeah, and then the Bayonetta. I'm not sure where that would be, but yeah. And then there's also rumors of a Metroid Prime remake, and then Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and then everything they'll announce in those couple directs. Like I think there'll be a few months next year where Nintendo has multiple releases just because it's stacked.
Now, Don, you mentioned Banjo-Kazooie coming to N64 in January. I did want to talk about that a little bit because Paper Mario just hit the N64 online service for the if you're an expansion pack tier subscriber. They announced Banjo-Kazooie 1 month later. So do we think they're going to do this like monthly trickle now with these games?
They kind of have to if they're asking more of a premium for it. Like, the thing is with the expansion pack is that considering they're asking a significant more amount of money, especially if you're a solo subscriber, not so much if you have family plan with a bunch of friends, they need to make that worth it. At least starting with one game per month is at least a start, but that also makes you question, are there still NES and Super Nintendo games?
Yeah.
Where are other Genesis games? Because like with just one N64 game next month, and not updating anything on the Genesis side, and leaving NES and Super Nintendo in limbo, I still think there's a lot of questions there.
Good point. Do we think maybe they just want to announce Banjo because it's such a big deal and probably is like the most attention-grabbing headline? Like I can see like maybe in another week or two, oh, here are the other Genesis games coming in January. We just didn't want to like... But they had been doing like the SNES and NES games kind of like in that social media post whenever they do that short video clip. They're like, here's what's coming this month. I guess I kind of assumed that N64 and Genesis would get its own kind of combined video each month if they're going to do that. So... yeah, that is a good thing. Like, it does, like, people are probably wondering, well, you announced these N64 games, what else? And then, even if they announce the Genesis games, fair point, when's the next time you think we're going to see NES and SNES games get added? Because they seem so sporadic at this point.
Yeah, they haven't updated the NES and Super Nintendo side since July.
I feel like I like, was there? Oh, man, that's that long ago. They get you with that. And there's obviously a lot of games that are not on that service especially from the SNES standpoint. And it's like at this point, I'm almost like, if you're not going to put them on that service, can you at least make them available to buy? I'm talking about like a Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG. It's like just put a Square Enix collection or something on there. 'Cause I just want to play these games on my Switch. Not to mention, I know we're getting off like legacy console stuff here, but still legacy stuff. Where the hell the pixel remasters Square Enix on consoles? Like come on, like where are they? Like, what's going on there?
I've been hoping that Square Enix is going to wait to bundle them into like a 1 to 6 collection on consoles and not sell them like individually. Like that's my big hope. But
to be fair, selling them separately is a Square Enix move.
Yeah, it is. It's a big Square Enix move, and not putting them on consoles at launch like that's what everyone wants is also a big Square Enix move.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, we were joking. We were talking a little bit earlier about Square Enix. The Square Enix tax coming back with the Forspoken and Final Fantasy VII Remake intergrade PC pricing. Them trying to bring next-gen pricing to PC games with they're $70 in the US, 80 euros over there, and it's like Square Enix is gonna Square Enix, I guess. You know, they're notorious. Remember the DS days, like that $5, $10 markup on all their games, even above first-party Nintendo games. Like, wow, Square, you're wow, this is a premium you're paying. So not really a surprise.
I mean, I remember when they had like $29.99 mobile games.
Oh my
god! And like everyone else was
I remember when they would when they would state, "Hey, we have big announcement coming," and it would just be a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
I
yes.
And
miss
then at the same
countdown
time,
website from the countdown days
Yeah.
where they would have countdown to a countdown.
yeah, and then like the biggest shocker of this year is how little they put marketing into Neo: The World Ends with You.
Gosh.
Yeah, that was a crime.
Yeah, we never really talked about that on Friend Code. Bradley Ellis here at the Easy Allies played and reviewed it. He's a really big World Ends With You fan.
Me too.
And it was kind of disheartening to see that statement come out. While critically it was well met, it fell below their sales expectations. A statement from Square Enix. So that probably, I mean, we never really talked about it on the show, but I mean, I guess my interpretation is that they'll explore The World Ends With You through other media if they want, but probably not another standalone game coming anytime soon. Yeah.
I think my main issue is that they didn't market it. Like, I've seen very little marketing of that game around it came out.
Yeah.
Do you blame Square Enix for that, or do you maybe blame Nintendo for that? Because I don't remember how that publishing deal worked out.
I blame Square Enix.
Well, the Square Enix.
Okay.
Square Enix is the one publishing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you
forgot
look
it was-
back, if you look back to their E3 presentation, that was 45 minutes. Neo: The World Ends With You had 5 seconds in a reel of multiple titles at the end. They didn't even give it any time in their own presentation, and the game was coming out a couple months later.
I mean, the marketing is still all over the place. I don't for sure think that some people don't even realize that True Colors is now on Switch.
Yeah.
Oh, because it came out after its initial release date.
after,
Yeah, it was
and
delayed.
Like,
Yeah.
it just randomly dropped out of nowhere on
about
Switch digitally.
I
Okay,
have a-
sure, man.
I do have a feeling, though, a lot of people probably don't want to play it on Switch. 'Cause I don't know how well it will
I mean,
run,
there's
but
always a few people that want to play it on
that's
Switch.
true. That's true.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does have some audience, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to how, like, because Nintendo was publishing Triangle Strategy, they put it in multiple directs. They've tweeted about it. Like, Nintendo is marketing their quote unquote Square Enix game more than Square Enix has marketed some of these games on Switch.
I take this as the biggest example. Dragon Quest XI, they marketed that one to beyond what anyone would expect them to, and then Square Enix can even not be bothered to the game they're publishing themselves on PlayStation 4 and Switch to give that enough marketing and love that it deserves because it's a beloved sequel to a game that everybody liked.
Well, a sequel to a beloved series that everyone liked. Hopefully, I don't know if everyone liked it. I guess
The majority of people enjoyed that game.
Yeah, but also
We're not all way too old though, but sure.
I was gonna reference. I was trying to make a joke about Shin Megami Tensei 5 because the reception of that game. Because we also talked about how it didn't win the best RPG category.
Yeah.
Small little headline today. It got a patch update today, and that patch removed the reference to the PlayStation 4 configuration for the game, even though the cat's out of the bag already with that. So I guess this is funny that that they did an update like that. I mean, that had to have been like a contractual thing where it's like, guys, get that out of there. We know everyone's gonna know, but like, just do it because you don't want to get into legal trouble or something. But that game is absolutely coming to like PS4 and PC and stuff. So I guess my question is, I mean, one, this is like, it's obviously that's like funny to see something like this happen, like this small little thing like this, like how what will set off a company to like freak out and like do something like that. But also, do you think this means SMT5 coming to other platforms? Is it going to be? Do you think it'll have like a second wind possibly, or how do you interpret this coming to other platforms?
Yeah, I mean, Atlas has made a real effort to make their games multi-platform now. We have the rumor of SMT5 coming to PS4 and PC, but Switch has been getting 13 Sentinels, that was a PS4 exclusive.
Yeah.
And now like Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is now Switch, PS4, and PC. So I think as much as they can, Atlas now is trying to put things on Switch, PS4, PC.
I also think that Atlas was too reserved for the majority of its life and kind of needs the expansion desperately. Like, having your game on multiple systems is never a bad thing if it helps you to sell units.
Very true.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems so obvious, but then you look at, we're just talking about Square Enix. I mean, they have, especially like Final Fantasy VII Remake, is finally coming to PC, but still not Xbox. And it's like, is that actually, in the long term, is that hurting something like a big, huge, monumental tentpole event like Final Fantasy VII Remake it was on PS4, PS5, now PC, and still no Xbox, versus when it launched last in 2020, if it was on all platforms from the get-go. Is there a point where, like, even a year exclusivity, the money getting paid for that isn't offsetting, like, the like, I don't want to call it damaging. It's not really damaging the brand, but it's like preventing it from reaching its its potential. I feel like I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's any history of like indicating it. The only thing I can think of is Tomb Raider. When they did the second Tomb Raider of the reboot series, when it was that like exclusivity, it seemed to like not have fared as well. And when it came out on other platforms, it was too late. Yeah,
it felt like the price dropped quicker when it was only on one platform, especially in retail. I don't want to be also like the mean to Square Enix hour, but the Avengers game with Spider-Man. Spider-Man only just released on the PlayStation platforms, and it wasn't a good addition to that game to begin with, and they held that carrot for over a year. Like, Spider-Man is coming to the PlayStation version.
Do you want to rub more salt in the wound? Not only was the unceremonious arrival of Spider-Man in Avengers happened, but they were outplayed by Epic with having Spider-Man in Fortnite, and people saying Spider-Man in Fortnite's better than Spider-Man in Avengers. It's like, he plays better. Like, the swinging is better. It's like, oh my gosh, that's the worst right there. That's so bad. But hey, some positives. Positive Square Enix. Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker launched. Doing very well. So it's not like say something. I'm saying something nice here, balancing it out. To be fair.
Did you know that you can play Final Fantasy 14 for free with the first two expansions up to level 60?
Stop! He sees this right now. All right, the meme. This is the Square Enix meme episode. I'm just gonna put the title: Square Enix memes. I'm literally just calling this episode that. That's what's happening. Well, moving on from Square Enix to Nintendo RPGs, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, coming out in November. Right. Just a quick, brief reception update. Sales-wise, it's doing great. 6 million worldwide, according to GameBiz.jp. That's on par with Sword and Shield sales in the same time period. Decent amount above where Let's Go Pikachu Eevee was at the same period. So financially, Game Freak and Pokemon Company seem pretty happy with this, but critically might be another story, as we were seeing.
Hey, one second. Game Freak was not involved with this one.
That's right.
Ilka.
Ilka, thank you.
Which can literally stand for We Love Computers or something.
Thank you for calling me in on that. But maybe this is. I was gonna say maybe the sales would put some pressure on Game Freak, but at the same time, this game is getting some fair criticisms about it, and it's like, is it because of Ilka's first time trying this? Was there some oversight that was holding him back? Who knows? But fairly, there is criticism about the game, from everything from its presentation to its lack of risk taking. Sorry there. And I'm just curious, how from what you've played, how you feel about these games.
So I played for it pre them patching the game, but the game overall was pretty buggy, and it wasn't very hard to find glitches in this specific version of Diamond and Pearl. Obviously, they fixed it now, but it didn't stop speedrunners from already completing the game in under 20 minutes.
That's just insane.
But from a more casual perspective, so the way that I play the game, it didn't take much risk. It's still Pokemon. For me, it's comfort food, so I'm not overly critical, but I'm also at the same time, I felt, especially after the risks they took deliberately with Sword and Shield, I would have wanted them to take a few risks, to add more story like they did with Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire at the end, or bring features back that they didn't want before. They did bring back the Union Room, which I'm like, is that really necessary in 2021?
Yep.
So in those regards, it's strange how little risk they took. I enjoy a bunch of the initial features that they added, like the Grand Underground, for example. I think I've spent like half of my time I spent there. But if there was more stuff like that, I would have likely have a higher opinion of it. And right now, for me, it's a fine game.
All right, fair. What about you, Stealth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so honestly, like I kind of enjoyed my time with the game. Obviously there wasn't a lot of risk taken. It was a pretty one-to-one translation of the original.
Yeah.
So yeah, there wasn't a lot of risk taking. But I really did enjoy it. And the game, the game's difficulty, I found the game really easy up until like the very end.
Yep.
And then like
Yeah.
I've only just started
Same.
the post like rematch battles, and I've been heard and I've seen they're like some of the hardest in the series.
Oh,
So
for sure.
the difficulty at the end is very good. Overall, I actually like the games. Would I say they're in my top 5 JRPGs of 2021? Probably not. But like Don said, it's comfort food. I know what I'm getting, and I could sit back and relax. I don't have to stress too much when playing it. Like it's not like a stressful game.
Yeah.
That's a good point to put it, as you put it, because I found myself, I played this in short burst over like probably a few weeks is how I did my playthrough. I didn't like just power through it or even do like marathon sessions. And despite, like it being like more the same, it was like, I feel like I can handle Pokemon games like taking less risk when I'm just playing them here and there. Like, maybe an hour here, maybe 30 minutes there. It's just like, it's like familiar, and as you said, it's like I like this, but at the same time, I do think it's like fair that people are calling out like why is it missing, like there are features that we thought would be in here, and I know there's some criticism around the presentation as well, like the chibi characters versus seeing them like the more like life-size models like when they're in cutscenes or in battles. So some of the cutscenes were done in like the chibi models and like these serious scenes where they're supposed to be emotional. I mean, but that's how they looked back in the day. So I was like, I don't know if that like if that irked you at all, how they looked at some points, or if you thought it ended up looking fine.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't have any big problems. And people online always say they want risks, but we're gonna really see next month if they're gonna put their money where their mouth is. Because Pokemon Legends probably is taking the most risks of any like RPG Pokemon game in the series, and we'll see if it could even sell half as much as the Diamond and Pearl games do. So we'll see if people really want like super innovation.
That's also a good point, because damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, imagine if this game, if Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl had taken a bunch of risks and people hated them, you'd probably see just as many headlines about, man, why did you just make a 1-to-1 remake? I just wanted the game remade as is. How many times have we seen remakes of stuff and people are like, just make the thing as was, and then when you do it, people are like, oh, why isn't there extra stuff? Like, I don't know how you win that fight, which is why I tend to like think remakes are like one of the riskiest, scariest propositions you can do, because you are fighting against so much, and there's like such a narrow margin to like success.
I do feel that in some ways, like, they're losing their longevity a little bit when it comes to Pokemon games. Like, if you brought back the Battle Frontier, for example, I would be completely fine with that, because it would feature more longevity beyond just playing the game and finishing the Pokédex. And I think they kind of moved away from that in some regards. Like, I still enjoy them, I still play through them, so they must still be doing something right. But for me, as the longevity of the game is concerned, that's where I really struggle with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, because I still play Sword and Shield to this day because of the Dynamax adventures, because of the stuff that you can do with your friends. It feels more interactive and dynamic in that regard. And before this game even came out, they literally said, "Oh, this all well and good, but the main meta is still in Sword and Shield. So see you guys later."
Yeah, I mean, Sword and Shield is a big game now, especially with the expansions.
Yeah.
Like it's a big game, and I feel like the Elite Four and the Gym Leader rematches in Diamond and Pearl are really, really good, and that's like halfway to getting like really good post game content, and like the Battle Tower is there. But like it would have been it would have shut a lot of people up if they had like the full battle frontier from Platinum.
This Patreon question comes from Cathal Fallon. From the online discourse, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl appears to be a broken mess, from bugs and exploits to being able to beat the game with only one battle, or moving past trainers with diagonal running without them seeing you. Do you think Game Freak will allow a third-party developer to do another remake for them after this?
That's okay. So my theory on that is that I think Game Freak will be less inclined to do so, because Game Freak, the higher management Game Freak, are still on the board of the Pokemon Company, so they want to maintain a certain grade of quality. And despite what you think about certain games from Game Freak, one thing you can never fault them on is that they're full of bugs, because they are not. And they have a very high quality standard when it comes to specifically the bugs department. So I do wonder how they personally feel about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Because it took like 2 or 3 full-on patches, because some parts weren't in the game when it shipped on a cartridge. So I'm wondering how they, in this specific instance, like feel about the game.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Pokemon Company does partner with a lot of different studios. This isn't the first time, and it probably won't be the last. I do think they'll want to work with them again, only because like the game has sold like 6 million units. So like if the bottom line is the game sold and did really well, and it did review pretty well, maybe that's enough to have this studio get a second chance, or work on something else with them. If the game like failed like sales wise, then they probably wouldn't have gotten it. I think the sales is probably going to forgive this. And it's funny because I didn't really like, I just played the game like without knowing how to do any of I didn't experience any glitches myself. And I don't know how much of it is if you know what to do to get the glitch.
Some glitches are just random occurrences.
Yeah, so maybe I was just lucky then, because I really didn't experience it.
Like, and if you go out of script only a little bit, which the game is hard-coded into that, but if you manage to do it somehow, the game would just crash.
Yeah.
But like the majority of people who play it regularly from point A to point B will never see that stuff. But it's still something that I give a lot of pause about, because I feel like, honestly, with Game Freak, is the one thing that they always do right is their quality assurance side of things. So I do feel that they have some reservations of asking them again. Might they do it? For sure. I mean, if they don't want a similar remake as they did right now, then it makes sense they would do it. It's only the one reservation that I kind of have about that.
That's a good point. And to the sales point of it, I mean, how much of the sales would have happened regardless because of like this name recognition. So, but at the same time, I do think they'll probably be rewarded. At the very least, I could see them maybe working with them again, but like Game Freak has like supervisors attached to some of their teams. They'll be like, all right, you guys are capable, but we just like this is your first attempt, so we just need to get you up to our quality assurance speed here, so that we don't have such a buggy launch next time if we do this, and have to rush out patches to fix all this stuff.
To be fair, also, and I give Ilka some slack here, this was the first game they built fully on their own, because they mostly been throughout their life a support studio. So in that regards, I do cut them some slack a little bit.
Yeah, it's a step up for them. And I will say this, I don't know why, the reasons here, but in the Chibi presentation reminded me so much of Link's Awakening from 2 years ago, kind of aesthetically, and it's like, this game at least runs pretty smoothly, whereas Link's Awakening had the frame rate hiccups all over the place. I'm like, well, at least they could do, like, they I was like, I give them props here. I was like, almost like, hey, can you, like, if you're going to do another Zelda, handheld remake, can you do it like in this style, like so it runs? I don't know, that's the I'm just bitter about that game not running well.
And it feels like almost all of Game Freak right now is working on Legends to make sure it hits that January release date. Like, I don't think we would have gotten these games if they didn't hand them off to somebody.
That's I want to pose this question to you then, Stealth and Daan, because you just reminded me of something by saying that.
Mhm.
That strategy, bringing in someone else to bring in to get this game done, otherwise it might not have happened, because it feels like they're absolutely trying to adhere to that yearly schedule. Do you
Yeah.
think maybe the yearly cycle for Pokemon, like making sure that at least one game comes out a year, like, do you think part of the, like, there's a potential that this is like suffering from that maybe they need to space out a little bit more, regardless of shareholders? I know the excuse, I like shareholders, like
I,
the financial people, they want this to keep coming out because they
Yeah.
want them to
Mhm.
print money, but from a consumer standpoint and
Right.
quality, do you think it's suffering because of that?
Sure. Here's my overall feeling of it. Like Pokemon, when I was younger, so when my first Pokemon game was Yellow. When I got it in my hands, it felt like an event. Like every time I played a Pokemon game, it felt like an event happening. Um, with not just Pokemon, but also with like say Mario and Zelda getting something every single year, it feels less of an event now, and only like the bigger games in between, say for Sword and Shield or say a Mario Odyssey, feel like those special events still. But everything with like Pokemon, Mario, or Zelda in the name every year, it feels like they had to do it because they have to do for their bottom line, and not because they can. I will say this though, like when I still get excited when certain games hit. For example, I was super excited about new Pokemon Snap. Like that got me like hyped up in an instant. But it for me it more depends on the game, less so the franchise. And I think maybe with Pokemon they need to more focus on like spin-offs, which they used to do a lot in the day, especially on the N64 and GameCube. And less so on the mainline games to be the full focus. Because it's not even their big, for the Pokemon Company wise, it's not even their biggest moneymaker. It's purely merchandise.
They are the biggest media company. They surpassed was it Hello Kitty, right? They're
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that.
they're bigger.
So yeah, like their gaming stuff was as big as it is. They're clear, like it's other, yeah, other departments or
Yeah.
divisions are bringing in, like, the lion's share of that wealth. But I'm kind of with you. Like that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, is like should like mainline Pokemon entries be a little bit more spaced out, and like should they be filling it in with like spin-offs, which I think are risk-taking endeavors. Like, we're trying something different here, and I think Legends Arceus kind of fits that to an extent.
Yeah.
Like they're doing that. So next year, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to do something different with this. And if they have a fall Pokemon game not come out, I'm like, I don't fault you for that, because you were trying to make this Arceus, and like that's fine. I can wait until 2023 fall for the next Pokemon game. Absolutely.
For me, I'm looking at sales like winning or failing. I'm just looking at, is the risk good enough that they can be allowed to skip a year? Because and we know this very well, that after this game is completed, someone needs to work on a Pokemon game for the next year. I'm on that. Even if it's at the start of the year, and they're likely closely done to now, considering it's coming out in January. Someone needs to work on a Pokemon game that's coming out in 2022. What it is, we don't know. But the fact that it's coming, because they are now on a yearly cycle, like, it still continuously concerns me, especially for the mental well-being of developers in themselves.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too was the fact that we're in like the 25th anniversary, so they're packing all of these games into it. We've had new Pokemon Snap, Unite came out, an update to Cafe came out, Brilliant Diamond and Pearl, and then like Legends, like all within a very, very short amount of time. Even though they're all not being handled internally, it's just a lot of different games happening. And I do think that there is the potential that Legends might be the only major Pokemon game in 2022. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. As they work on the next generation, whenever that's going to be.
Yeah.
But I do think that they definitely have the ability after Legends to not release another Pokemon game in 2022 if they want
I hope
to.
so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like that can be it. Like, maybe they'll have like an expansion pass to Legends, where there'll be a couple other stories. Like, I can see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I have felt a little bit of Pokemon fatigue, because I've been playing all these games this year. It's been a lot.
My biggest hope is that they take a step back and look at the feedback from Legends and potentially incorporate what worked, what didn't work, what could work, or what consumers asked for into consideration before taking off to work on their next major project, at least Game Freak proper. Because I'd like to see the lessons learned from Legends be applied to a future one, and I'm like, if that means they need a longer development time to make the next mainline Pokemon, I want to see that, because like if it takes till fall 2023 for whatever next generation of Pokemon to hit, it's like, if they take those lessons, I'm going to be very happy, because it's going to probably mean a better Pokemon game versus, no, we're already in development. Like, as soon as we finish this game, we're going to start immediately going into the next game. And we could, like, the feedback, we'll worry about that later. Like, I mean, maybe they can do both. I mean, I don't know enough of their development pipeline to say what one way or the other, but I just really want them to take the lessons learned from that to apply that, because as you also point out, like, the next one might even potentially have the chance to be on a next gen Switch or whatever. Like, looking at like a next end of 2023, that might be the time where we're talking about a successor to Switch. So they might be doing double duty, where it's like, we need to make a new Pokemon generation for a new hardware, and we have all this feedback from like a spin-off game that like was more ambitious. So we got a work cut out for us for like that next one.
I'll also not be shocked if they do another Let's Go.
Yeah, like, people thought Let's Go was going to become like maybe like a spin-off series. Just like some people theorized, even Roger, when we had him on, Roger's Base thought that Legends might become a new series as well if this is successful enough. And that kind of gets to the point, like, maybe they do need to bring on more developers to do these other series to maybe pad out the like one a year, but that buys them a longer cycle between each game. So maybe mainline Pokemon games come out every 2 years, because you have these other studios working on a Let's Go and a Legends type game in between. Or, you know, if maybe Game Freak even expands bigger, they have different departments.
I'll say this though about Pokemon on Switch, like, every game that they've released that's mainline, so Let's Go, Sword and Shield, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends, has been so art style wise, and the way that it goes from A to B have been all different from each other. Which you have to realize that during the 3DS era, when we got X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire back to back, it kind of felt too similar. And with the art styles being different and the way that the game controls different, and it goes from point A to point B, at least you can say that every game on Switch, with its major Pokemon related, has been uniquely its own.
Yeah, I do think that's a good idea. And this year they just did like the side games and the main games all in 1 year, and it felt like a lot. They definitely can stretch things out. Will they?
Yeah,
I don't know.
The will they is the big question. Yeah. Let me kind of wrap this up asking you one question about Legends, because I think I kind of know your answer, Stealth, because you kind of already answered this, but this comes from our patron level Capybara. Reportedly, the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes have sold 6 million in their first week on the market. Do you expect Pokemon Legends Arceus to do better or worse?
Well, at least in Japan, pre-orders are tracking lower. Will it sell over 1 million units? I think so. They really haven't started marketing it at all yet. Like, we don't know a lot about the game. We've heard like some rumblings that it might be their take closer to Monster Hunter. And if that's the case, like, Japan's gonna eat that up. But is it gonna sell as much as a main game with this first entry? I'm just not confident in that.
What I find interesting is that we're a month and a half away from it, and they've barely started doing the big marketing for it at all. Yeah. Because if you look at Diamond Shining Pearl, they immediately started after those games were announced. Like, almost immediately. It feels like maybe it's because of it's now the holiday season, but everything feels kind of muted. Like, there was that trailer for Voltorb. Yeah. But outside of that, there hasn't been any major news.
Yeah, they've been sprinkling like Pokemon reveals, and I think they still have a bunch more of those. They've been doing a lot of advertising on Twitter, more so than anything else. I think they probably could use like another Pokemon. Was
Presents,
it Pokemon Presents? I was
yeah.
not gonna say Direct. um, I think they could do another Pokemon Presents, just like a 20-minute presentation, just focusing on that game, and that would probably go a long way.
Which
And I
kind of
think
should, yeah.
and I think they might do that actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because we're still kind of in like the Diamond and Pearl sales cycle, maybe they're like holding back on it. But and it seemed unusual. Like we're going from one big Pokemon game to another big Pokemon game,
Oh,
like
yeah.
in very short order. And I don't know if that was always intended, and COVID might have had something to do with like this schedule. Well, because Advance Wars was supposed to be like in December, it wasn't supposed to be like back to back like that. But yeah, I do think we're still in the Diamond and Pearl cycle, and then maybe toward the end of the month they'll kick it into high gear.
Yeah, my problem with that is that they only have then a month to build up.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Which they did a few trailers like earlier, I think September, October, around the same time of marketing as Burning Diamond and Shining Pearl. Those trailers should have been now.
Yeah.
Because now that the game is out and people already have it in their hands, like there are a subset of people that are looking more forward to Pokemon Legends Arceus. And it feels like they haven't done enough time to build that up just yet. And it almost doesn't feel like the game is coming out at the end of January.
Yeah.
That's true. I wonder if there's any concern over the initial reveals, like the performance of the game, the frame rate issues. Like maybe they were like, we don't really want to push so hard because people were like, wow, you're just shoving this down our throats and this game looks so rough right now. Do you think maybe that played any factor into shortening it?
The last number of trailers didn't drive much issue, so I don't necessarily think it's that.
Okay. Yeah, because the more recent stuff looks much better, in my opinion. So I think they're kind of over that hump. And it's like you'd want to put more of that footage out there showing it running pretty well and instilling confidence and people looking forward to it. But I think despite it maybe not to your liking being enough lead time to build up enough momentum, or they're not capitalizing on enough momentum by revealing the stuff earlier, I'm kind of with Stealth. I fully expect like beginning of January, like to have a Pokemon Presents. Like I'm expecting the first week, maybe latest week 2, having a Pokemon Presents that focuses on. Thing is, I don't think it's just gonna be an Arceus thing. I think there might be like one or two other things in there because like where's Detective Pikachu 2? We haven't heard about like that, and it's like, oh, okay, well that would be nice to hear about that.
Technically, it's part 3.
Part 3.
Yeah. Because when they released it in Japan on the eShop, there was part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are other things I think that are outstanding that they could give an update to. But like the crux of that should be the push for Arceus.
Yeah, and we know there's going to be a Switch Collector's Edition Arceus or something.
Oh, yeah.
So
sure.
I feel like they're just waiting until like the holidays are over or something. But yeah,
Also,
I agree with Don that it should have happened already, but things are just weird.
Also, talking about part 3, I think they announced it now almost 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And they still haven't said anything about it, not even a screenshot.
And Pokemon Sleep was in that same presentation, I think. And
oh god, Pokemon Sleep. If that ever comes out, man, it still exists. Holy crap.
I want to meet the one person who is super excited about Pokemon Sleep and shake their hand. Thank you for your service.
It's like, wow. I have one final question related to Pokemon, looking to the future here. It comes from our patron RJ. First time sending questions, long time listener. With games such as Mario Odyssey, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and Breath of the Wild, that have some gameplay elements and vibe that brings them back to their roots while also innovating the franchise, what do you think Pokemon should do to achieve similar success? I heard not everyone is impressed with the recent mainline Pokemon despite doing arguably the same formula every game. Thank you guys. Keep up the good work. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from like Arceus a little bit, but is there like anything else you might you always wanted to see them do with a Pokemon? Maybe like a more the mainline entry that you'd like to see them do risk take wise?
You see, I like the main games, and I kind of like the fact that they don't change. It's something I can count on as being the way it is. That's why I kind of like the idea of having like split main games where You have like the quote unquote main generation that's turn based, and you go around battling in gyms, and that's the way those are. And then you also have like the Legend series that's different, that might take place during a different time period that has nothing to do with gym battles. Also has new Pokemon, but very, very different. So I kind of like where we're headed with like this like split path of games here.
I don't think they would ever try it again because this is something that they kind of sort of tried with Black and White 2. I think they should bring back adjustable difficulty.
I was gonna ask about that. That's one of the things I see so many veterans get up. Like so, even people who have the same mindset of you, Stealth. I'm kind of curious. Do you like how easy Pokemon games are up to a certain point, or would you personally prefer to have from the get-go, like, because as far as I understand, you had to beat it once to unlock the hard mode, or have a friend do something, right? So from the get-go, if they had a harder difficulty setting for you, would you like that, actually?
I mean, I think difficulty options are never a bad thing. I don't know why they couldn't have like an easy, normal, and hard, and give people the option to
or
play
just
it
normal and hard is fine too, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Give people the options. Like, I know Shin Megami Tensei, I think even below casual mode is like safety mode. There's like an easier mode than that, and they have normal, and then hard is very, very hard. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Pokemon would do any worse with difficulty options. That just is better for everybody.
For me, it comes down to accessibility. I think that Pokemon design hasn't really moved on when it comes to purely accessibility options or options that make the game more enjoyable for more people. And I think in that specific regard, like, there needs to be at least a tiny bit looked at, because you cannot ask people constantly to do the same intro again of learning how to catch Pokemon. This is how you get your first Pokemon. This is how you heal them. Like, some people kind of want to move beyond that, and I think an adjustable difficulty would at least help levitate those sort of complaints.
Maybe they have a question at the beginning that says, "Is this your first time playing Pokemon?" And if you say no, the game would know to, like, let's skip over some of the more tutorial stuff.
I feel Fire Red and Leaf Green kind of did that with like the guy that you could access and don't had to go into.
Yeah,
I didn't play that one, so how did it handle it? Sorry.
It was sort of a guide feature that you could turn on and off, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I think some people don't want to wait 50 hours to hit like the hard content, which you know, the rematches are very hard, and those are great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
People don't want to beat the whole game just to get to that point. Maybe some people would like the actual gym battles as you play the game to be hard.
I have to imagine difficulty setting how maybe both of you would prefer them to, maybe like the ideal version of tuning it harder. Would it be like AI would be more aggressive at exploiting your weaknesses, that type of stuff, or would you want it to go even further and like gym leaders have different, like in gyms there's like better like more diverse comps for their Pokemon parties, so that like it requires a little bit, like it's the water gym, but like you're not just getting by with just
I feel,
like Pikachu.
So I feel like they're already kind of doing that with the Pokemon that you choose for gyms. I think purely when you go to the rematches, like the AI is much more aggressive, and I think I would kind of like that from the beginning and see how I would handle it.
Yeah, like even some of the optional harder battles, not just like the gym rematches, like the computer will like switch out Pokemon when it sees a match weakness, like whereas during the gym battles they just don't do that regularly. You know, so yeah, I do think there's a lot of opportunity to make the computers harder, or be smarter, you know, or just even have different moves that might exploit what you have at that time or what you should have at that time, you know, to do it that way. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to just, you know, increase some of the battle difficulty.
At the same time, I do recognize, I get it. I get why they're not doing it, because you just want little Timmy to play through the game and enjoy themselves. Like, I was the same then when I was younger. I get that.
Yeah.
But there's now a growing population that grew up with Pokemon, and the people who are coming in later. at least giving the option, maybe hide it somewhere if you feel that unsure about it. Make it happen somehow. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, most JRPGs have it in the option menu that you can access whenever you want to switch it. You pick the difficulty at the start, and then anytime you go into the options, you can adjust it. Yeah, I mean, I think it should have an easy, normal, hard.
That's a big one. I'm a champion of them of being able to toggle difficulty settings. If you give you difficulty options, let players change it even when they're in the game. Locking a file to a difficulty setting seems a bit archaic, and especially like games like on our platforms, like anything that has a trophy or achievement related to that, it's like those feel a little bit dated. I understand people want challenge, and like I'm not getting into the debate. I'm not going to even touch a certain debate about difficulty within a certain franchise. I'm staying away from that one. But for most every other series, difficulty options are pretty good. Pokemon was never intended to be about like the hardcore challenge, but for, as you said, a growing amount of players as time has gone on, they would like a little bit more pushback. I think it would be beneficial to whoever, if it's Game Freak or Ilka, whoever's making the next one, to consider that option at least.
I also have to consider this. If people didn't want difficulty, the concept of Nuzlocke wouldn't exist.
The concept of what?
Of Nuzlocke.
Yeah, the challenge that people do where you catch the first Pokemon you see, and if a Pokemon faints, they're gone.
What? I've not heard of this. Wait.
It's a growing growing trend on YouTube and Twitch for a few years now, where players go to a specific route. They can only catch one Pokemon on that route, and they build up a team that way. But if the Pokemon dies, they have to put it in their box forever, and they count it as dead.
Wow. So, but it's self-imposed restrictions, like to make the game harder. Okay, that stuff is cool. But like your point is like, there's people want this. They're going to that length to do that.
If people didn't want a higher difficulty, or a subset of people within the Pokemon community didn't want a higher difficulty, the concept that created with Nuzlocke wouldn't have existed in the first place.
Gotcha. That's a good argument there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm sorry, it was not. Maybe I've heard about that, just forgot about it. But like, I was like, am I not I was so confused for a second. I apologize.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's so cool though to see that. That reminds me of the Final Fantasy V Job Festa thing they do, where in Final Fantasy V they have that challenge about like locking like to certain jobs, and you have to go like that stuff's always great, like to do that. And games that facilitate that are generally go over better for, like you were talking about earlier, Daan, longevity. Your concern you said about like Pokemon was like longevity with some of these. Like this type of stuff will, I think, help players coming back for more when you don't need to make DLC. In the days when there wasn't DLC, this is what kept people coming back. The games that had these types of options or that incentive, the like players would come up with that stuff. So
no, for sure.
Yeah, I think Don hit it on the head, where I think Pokemon Company is really afraid of kids having trouble getting through the games. I think they're like deathly afraid of that. They want as many people to get through the games as possible, and I think that's really what their big hang up about it is, because Nintendo has, like, I'm trying to think of some recent games, like they do difficulties. So like
Masterboard and Breath of the Wild, huh?
Yeah. So like, but Pokemon Company is just very, very afraid of alienating younger gamers with it.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense. And I think you're getting at, like, little, as you're saying, like, little Timmy accidentally picks hard, and no one saw him do that, and then he starts crying to, like, mom and dad, why is this game so hard? And they're not very literate about video games. They're like, oh, this one, they don't know how to change difficulty. Like you were saying, like, maybe hide the option a little bit for, like, older gamers who understand it a little bit better. Like, they know where to go. Oh, that's where to do it. But it makes, I mean, I understand that. But also at the same time.
I do wonder if Legends is going to have a difficulty. Like, we don't know a lot about it. I do wonder if it's going to have difficulty settings. Possibly. Because it is more action. It is more action based.
I get that vibe. Anyway. Yeah, you're right. Because like trying to catch Pokemon when they can attack you as the trainer. I have a feeling they might have an option. Even if it's not like a hard coded option, there might be like an item or something. It's like, we want to make this a little bit easier for people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank all of our patrons who submitted questions for this episode of Friend Code. If you are a $5 or up patron, you can submit questions for consideration for each episode of Friend Code. Just look out for that post. I'll make it about a week in advance of the episode, so thank you very much. We also have some shout-outs for the month of December 2021. These are our highest patron tier. So shout-out to Elthanis, Greg the Dark Knight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, Nick, and Christian Simniak. Shout-out. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you for joining me for this episode. I know it's been such a long time, Dan, for doing this, but Dawn's for, man, I just can't say words today. I'm really bad. But it was a pleasure having you on after almost this like year-long kind of hiatus. So really happy to have you on. It's always a pleasure. So
it's literally my first podcast back, so it feels good.
Thank you for taking time out of your weekend to be with us today, and same with you, Stealth. Thank you so much for being on again. And sorry it took so long to get you back on here, but yeah, we were kind of going like back and forth a little bit, but I'm glad we were able to make it work out. So thank you so much. We gotta look forward to that Monolith Soft announcement. This is funny, real quick. I've had a lot of people, like, it hasn't happened yet, but I have a list of people who've like, hey, when they announce that Monolith Soft game, I want to come and talk about it. It's like, we might have to do like a mega
roundtable.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a roundtable for that episode because it's like weirdly the most anticipated one to talk about for whatever reason. It's hilarious, but hopefully get to hear about that in 2022 because I'm also very excited to talk about Monolith Soft and their next project. I'm tired of speculating. I'm tired of all these like blog posts in Japan about being interpreted as updates. I was like, I want the announcement. Just give me the damn announcement.
Yeah, I mean, not going totally off topic before we end, but like the Xenoblade 2 happened during the 2017 Nintendo reveal event. The definitive edition happened during Nintendo Direct. So if it happens, it'll happen in a Direct, and that's it. Like I know people speculated it would happen at the Game Awards, but like that's a little too Japanese, I think, for the Game Awards. So I think it'll happen at a Nintendo Direct.
Well, let's hope that Direct happens soon and gives us some news. But anyway, thank you both, and enjoy your holidays as we go into the holiday break. And to our listeners and viewers, you too have a good holidays. When the episode after will be our look back at the year in review episode, and then the episode after that will be the big 2022 preview episode where I'll inescapably have to mention Monolith Soft and Xenoblade 3 because it's a possibility, but that's just the nature of the work. So again, thank you so much for your support, and until next time, may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.